Well, hello and welcome to the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960 AM. I'm your host, Tania Kolar. Are you ready for your mindset workout? As you know, the Mindset Mentor is all about helping to strengthen and condition your mindset and help you cultivate a life you love. And coming up in this hour, you are going to hear an incredible story of a woman who used the power of mindset and gratitude to overcome a mystery illness year after year, and looking for answers, visiting doctor after doctor, having tests upon tests done, and declining health. Her doctors just couldn't figure out what was wrong. So Jennifer decided to take matters into her own hands, and she used the power of gratitude as the foundation for regaining her health. She wrote about her story in her book, Flourish, which we're going to talk about. She explains her entire journey in the hopes of helping and inspiring other people who are going through a similar challenge. And of course, we all go through challenges in life, and you will definitely gain something beautiful through her story. So I, just want to jump into the conversation right away and say hello to Jennifer Garman. She is, of course, an author, but she's also the founder of gratitudemission.org and certainly looking to help and inspire others. So Jennifer, welcome to the Mindset Mentor. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks so much, Tania. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited.
Awesome. We were talking earlier about how, you have such great energy. So, it's so interesting having gone through such a struggle for many years of this mystery illness that you were battling. You clearly didn't always have this incredible amount of energy. So I'd love to really start with where it all began. What symptoms sort of started to pop up, and when did you realize that something is not right here? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so it happened really suddenly. I mean, I was chugging along. I was juggling a lot of balls in the air. I was probably, in hindsight, juggling way too much now that I look back, and realizing that, instead of taking things off my plate, I kept adding things to my plate. And it was just more and more and more of a balancing act. And it was just that last straw, I think, that broke the camel's back. And, I just took on too much, and I just flatlined. One night, I just had complete and absolute insomnia. And this was something that was completely foreign to me. I have never in my life had an issue sleeping. Mm-hmm. And I go back to the most stressful times, like final exams and, things, job on the line, that kind of stress. And I never had a problem. I could always at least get 5-6 hours, even in the most stressful circumstances. And this night, I just laid there the entire night, feeling completely ready to kick over into sleep mode, and it just never happened. And I was frustrated and I was upset, but I figured, what? Okay, the next night I'll get a great sleep. Until it happened the next night and the night after that. And I was absolutely exhausted. I had 3 young kids at the time. My twins were 3 years old, and I had a 1-year-old. And it was just, I had to have energy, and I had to get through the day. And it was a grueling physical day of 3 young kids. And I was at the point where I'm like, I've got to go to the doctor. I've got to figure out what's wrong. I need to sleep. So I visited my doctor. I reluctantly went on some sleep medication, and it was, pseudo helpful. I would get kind of 5 or 6 hours eventually after about a week or so of, I call it pseudo sleep, because it wasn't the sleep that I had known. It wasn't fully restorational, restful, rejuvenating sleep. It was getting by sleep, as I call it. And I knew that this was not going to be the solution. So, and in the meantime, other symptoms were popping up. I had food intolerances that I've never had in my life. Allergies were coming up, and as far as I knew, even in childhood, I was never allergic to anything. And it just kept snowballing, more and more and more things. And I went to see rheumatologists, I went to see allergists, I went to see all kinds of specialists, and they would pigeonhole me into this diagnosis and treat my symptoms, but the treatment never worked. It never did anything for my symptoms. So I, at one point, was eating nothing but non-starch vegetables and a little bit of meat. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? I'm following every protocol to a T and I'm not getting better. And it was about the 7-year mark where I just decided, you know what? This doesn't seem to be a terminal thing. I can kind of get by in my life. I can't work a full-time job, but what can I do that, if this is what I've been dealt, what can I do to move forward and just have some semblance of a career and a life? So I decided at that point to get my life coaching certification and just, say that if this is what I've been given and this is the way it's supposed to be, I'm going to make the best of it I can.
Mm-hmm.
So during those studies, the notion of gratitude kept coming up over and over again as a very powerful, life-changing emotion. And I was studying neuroplasticity. I was studying quantum physics. I was just enamored by this research and this information out there and about the power of our thoughts and the power of our mind. So I decided to do a little study on myself, and I was the guinea pig, and I pulled in neuroplasticity techniques.
Mm-hmm.
I rooted it around the emotion of gratitude, and I would practice this for a solid hour, 2 hours every day. And lo and behold, I started feeling better. And I'm trained scientifically. I'm actually, I graduated as a computer science engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very skeptical. I'm like, this is not happening.
You've got the analytical science mind. You need facts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I didn't believe it for a second. I'm just like, oh, this is a fluke because, it's a little renaissance period and it's going to go full back into my sickness soon enough. But it didn't. It kept getting better. And within a few weeks' time to a month, all my symptoms had been resolved. And at that point, I was very curious. So I started to really dive deep into the research. I got a hold of every neuroplasticity book and all the experts that I could. And I started to come across the realization that the science shows that this is absolutely possible. And even more so, I believe that I did, in fact, heal myself through my thoughts.
Okay, I want to talk about that. The fact that, you started to realize that this is possible because you battled a mystery illness for 7 years. So if we think about it, I mean, that's a long time. Being sleep deprived, the body heals and rejuvenates as we're sleeping. And when you're not getting that restorative deep sleep, your body, of course, is going to start to shut down. Your immune system is going to be compromised. But also, coming, along with that would be mental clarity, right? The lack of mental clarity, having 3 small children to take care of. I want to talk about sort of the real shift of, experiencing that 7-year period to now coming to a point where it's like, wow, this is possible that I can now, heal myself. And then this technique that you've discovered, accidentally sort of discovered, was helpful for you.
Yeah, and when you talk about the mental clarity, I can attest it to, I was living in a thick fog mentally. I mean, I would forget everything. I would not remember what I was saying mid-sentence. I hated driving because I would have this vertigo feeling while I was driving the car where I felt like the entire car was tipping over. I mean, it was just these bizarre feelings and emotions and things that would come through. And it literally had me living in this little tiny bubble of a life that, I couldn't do anything but go, find another doctor to see what was wrong. Mm-hmm. And it was just a miserable existence that I was living. I was trying to do the best I could, but I had really kind of run out of all options and all hope. And, my thought was, well, maybe this is just how it's going to be from here on out. And that was it was not an easy thing to digest, but I think the acceptance of, what you've been given is the first step, and saying, you know what, maybe it's not, looking on the bright side, it's not a terminal thing as far as I knew. But, that acceptance and that feeling of not being in control anymore, I think was a big step and part of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, that is key because there's so much uncertainty with obviously a mystery illness, right? And, you're going to professionals for the answers and you're not getting any answers, right? And they're stumped. And, it's not just one time, it's repeatedly over and over and over again. And then having to deal with misdiagnoses. I can imagine that would be quite difficult to finally think, oh my goodness, now there's hope. They can help solve this illness that you're coping with and dealing with. And then you get the answers back and there is no answer. What did that feel like?
Yeah, it was kind of like this build up to excitement, like, oh, this guy knows, or this woman knows what I've got. And the hope would all come rushing back in, only to realize that, no, it's just another dead end rabbit hole that we've gone down. And this is not what I have. This is not the protocol that's going to get me back to health again. But I did get that hope built up every time that I would see somebody that they knew exactly what I had, and they'd seen people before, and they knew it was going to help me. But unfortunately, it didn't.
I think it's really interesting. I think it's so important to find a balance between obviously being hopeful. I think you should always be hopeful, right? But as you say, there was a point that you said, well, I'm going to have to embrace this situation, come to terms with what's going on. I do think it's important sometimes that we release the resistance to life in our circumstances and our situations. So if we can fall into embracing the experience, sometimes the clarity will present itself. Did you find that you had a little bit more clarity through saying, okay, I'm going to deal with this and let's see what happens?
Yes, and I would say it was through the relinquishing of control, because I believe control is this massive illusion that people feel like they have the control in their life and they've got control over every situation and every which thing, but that's just an illusion, and we really don't. What we have control over is how we view things and the mindset that we have. That's the control we have. And when we think of that in terms of our thoughts, that's when the transformative power comes into play.
Yeah, our thoughts, dictate, I think, our entire world. Of course, mindset is so key to everything in your life. And of course, there's many challenges that we are faced with, but it's so important to really strengthen and condition your mindset so that we can better handle whatever life sort of throws at us. And again, releasing that resistance and the control is important. And I think it's the uncertainty that really scares everyone. It's like, oh my goodness, now can I get past this situation? Can I move forward? What's going to happen? And we always think of the worst case scenarios when we have that uncertainty, right? And so that creates so much fear. So for you, going through your experience, did you have fear of the long-term impact that this mystery illness was going to present for you?
The fear never really set in until later, like years into it, where I was like, well, what if this is the way it has been? And when I really wrote things down in terms of, the symptoms I had, what I was dealing with, what I was able to do to function, it really wasn't as fearful as I had built it up in my mind. It wasn't the worst case scenario where I was bedridden and I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, I had good days. I had days where I was almost, 50 to 70% of who I was, but then it would just revert back. So I truly embraced those times when things would get to 50 to 70%, and I lived my life to the fullest during those times. But it was always that, how long is this going to last feeling? And I know it's going to come back again, which it always did, but maybe too that knowing and feeling like it was going to come back again perpetuated the fact that it did come back again.
It's so true. Oh my goodness. It's so important to focus on, the good stuff, right? And what we want, and hopefully more of that will come in as opposed to the negative. So I think that's such a great point. I love that. And I love that you were able to maintain, that structure of positivity instead of being sort of derailed and falling into that, because it can be an easy place to go into that, victim, the poor me, I have this illness of some sort that is really impacting everything, in my life. So I think that's such a great awareness that you were able to come. So I want to talk about how you were able to get to the point of pursuing a career in coaching, having battled this mystery illness. What was it that was going on in your mind to put you in that direction?
Yeah, so it's hard to say. I believe it was kind of a divine way that led me to it. But honestly, I was very prayerful, and I was very contemplative, and that, lead me to something that can help me. And this opportunity to get a coaching certification came up, which was greatly reduced in price. And I was kind of like, this just kind of came along at the right time where I had time to do it. And as well, the finances to be able to do it. And it was something that I could do part-time on my own terms. When I was feeling better, maybe I could take a little bit on. When I was feeling worse, I could cut back. So that's what I decided to do. But it was in the study process for that coaching certification that all of this mindset information and research came flooding in. And I loved it. I couldn't get enough. I was just, I would read one thing in my studies and then I'd go get 5 books on neuroplasticity, and I'd find out even more. And it just perpetuated this learning and this incredible time of excitement and research. And I was just in my element. I mean, if I can say it any simpler than that, I just knew I was in the right place studying the right thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how when you're on the right path with that internal feeling. And the problem, I think, lies is that when we don't tap into that inner knowing, right? We're always looking for the external world, and sometimes we're not going to find the answers that we truly need. Really important to, I think, stay focused and be able to listen to our intuition, right, which guides us into the right places. I mean, obviously, you found that course, came to you at the right time, and you acted upon that. So I do think it's important to take action, to move forward, despite what our challenges are, right? It's always a choice to move forward and to take that action. So I think that's so important. So now, let's talk about some of the factors for you that were helpful when it comes to, reading about and learning about neuroplasticity. I certainly love neuroplasticity as well. We love to sort of always grow and expand and create those good neural networks, and develop that. So do you feel that the neuroplasticity helped in your healing?
Without a doubt, I believe it did. And so much so that I became kind of pseudo-trained on neuroplasticity because I was so enamored with it. Like, how are people that are quadriplegic, paraplegic actually gaining their limb function back again? I mean, it was miracle story after miracle story, and it was all through neuroplasticity. I just couldn't get enough of it. So I took some of those learnings into my own practice, and it absolutely worked for me.
So what were some of those learnings? Like, what techniques did you use?
Yeah, so basically I would get myself into a position of just complete centered and in the now. So, and that took a while at first. You feel like you're in there, and then the to-do list pops in your head, or, a kid interrupts you, or the phone rings, or something like that. And you have to be able just to completely get into the moment, the present. And that took a while to be able to do that. But once I was able to do that, I would bring the root emotion of gratitude in and just feel that. And I would feel how I wanted to feel, my healthy, vibrant, energetic self, because I remembered that. I remembered how that felt. And I would bring the thankfulness and the gratitude into that. And I would feel it to the point where I would get goosebumps. And I would just dwell on that feeling. And then I would cast that feeling into the future and into what I wanted it to feel like, a week from now, a month from now. I'd envision a vacation that we had coming up. And I'd envision how I felt and how energetic I was and all the things I would be doing with that, goosebump emotion tied to it. And I would do this day in and day out. And I would spend hours doing this before I started feeling better. But lo and behold, it did work, and I did start feeling better.
That is amazing. And I think you said the key word there, the emotion. You added the goosebump emotion into it. And I think that's so important because oftentimes, we can, visualize, we can affirm as much as we want. But if we're not adding the component of emotion and getting emotionally involved with what it is that we want to create, I think that kind of almost creates a somewhat of a barrier. So when you can add that emotion, it's exponentially going to drive that forward in such a big way. And so let's talk about some of the responses around you. So going through an illness, having 3 small children, obviously you're not going to be able to be your optimal self, providing as you would being 100% of your, physical health. So there's a decline there. So what was the repercussions with your family, and did they see a shift for you, when you started to practice the gratitude?
Yeah, they did. And I would wake up without an alarm, just like raring to go. And they would be like, what's going on, Mom? What's up? Are you sick? Are you feeling okay? Because it was just foreign to them that I had this kind of energy. And it was all good. So, and I wanted to share with them, I'm like, concentrate on things that make you feel good and you'll feel so much better. And another thing that I wanted to add to my practice too, is after I would do this whole emotional, dwelling on emotion from the past, bringing it into the present, projecting into the future, I would actually practice juggling. because in neuroplasticity, if you learn something in conjunction with the rewiring the neural pathways, it actually ingrains even faster. So I took up juggling, and I would do this practice, and then I would juggle for 15, 20 minutes just to further ingrain that in. And I believe that helped even quicker to get it in there and become my new reality, so to speak.
So if we go back in time to, let's say, you had the mystery illness for 7 years. So let's go back into that space, in the middle of that. Could you ever imagine that you would be at the place that you are today, juggling, working on your mindset, visualizing, and being so energetic? I mean, is that such a complete, shift?
Yeah, and I would not really let my mind go there when I was that sick. I would really concentrate on all the things that I could control. What next? What's the doctor I could see next? What haven't we explored yet? I was maniacally focused on all of that stuff, and it really spiraled me into more of a negative mindset than a positive one, because I was constantly focusing on what I didn't have, what was wrong, what I didn't like, versus, all I did have, which is the root practice of gratitude, is focusing on all you do have, being thankful for it, feeling it. So I was doing the opposite when I was sick that I was doing when I was healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that was part of what brought on your mystery illness?
Most definitely it was.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very controlling personality. I had all my ducks in a row at all times, and I was very diligent about the control, or the illusion of control, that I thought I had over every situation. So that was absolutely part of it.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I think a lot of people listening right now can absolutely relate to that, and wanting to control everything. Sometimes in our environments, not only do we want to control our circumstances, but we want to control others' reactions to our thoughts and what we expect, our expectations, right, from others. All right, we're going to continue the conversation. We're going to take a break right here on the Mindset Mentor, and we will be back with more from Jennifer Garman, who has been explaining how she has overcome a mystery illness that she has been battling for 7 years. More when we come back. And welcome back to the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960 AM. I hope you are having an absolutely phenomenal Saturday and getting your mindset workout right here in this moment. It's so important to really work on our mindset. Our mindset is like a muscle that needs to be strengthened and developed. And you absolutely can do it. And one of the ways that we can do this is by listening and learning to others' experiences. And I think we've got the perfect opportunity today to share with you the power of mindset and how you can, rebuild, and how you can work on your mindset. Jennifer Garman joining me. She has overcome a 7-year battle of dealing with a mystery illness, having so many misdiagnoses, not knowing, what path she was going to take, or, the treatments were not working. So she developed the power of mindset and used the power of gratitude as well to really change your state, to move forward. So we're going to just continue the conversation. Jennifer, it's so great to have you here. And I want to thank you for being vulnerable enough to share your story. Certainly very personal, a personal journey. I can't imagine, what that kind of felt like, being a mom of three young kids at the time, having this mystery illness, the uncertainty that was there, not getting the help that you needed. That's I can imagine quite difficult emotionally to navigate. So thank you for being vulnerable to share that.
Thank you for having me, Tania.
It's so great to hear your story. So I want to talk about your book, Flourish, that you wrote to share your journey. So how did that come about? I mean, writing a book is not easy, right? And so, even just the idea of a book, and having gone through your illness, I want to talk about, when did that become a thing for you? When did you know that you wanted to share your story and that you wanted to help other people?
Yeah, well, shortly after I healed myself, so to speak, I knew that I needed to share this. I couldn't keep this to myself. So the first way I wanted to do it is share it with my kids and teach them about gratitude and how to bring that into their life. And I went out looking for a product that I could buy that would do that. And I didn't really find anything besides gratitude journals. But what I wanted was something, I wanted a visual that they would see over and over again, not something that you close up and tuck away and put next to your bed that you may or may not remember to open up again.
Mm-hmm.
So I found things that you could make and you could put on the wall in the form of a tree. And I really liked that idea. So I fashioned my own gratitude tree out of vinyl wall stickers. Mm-hmm. And I put it up, and people were always asking me, where did I buy that? I want to get one of those. And I kind of put two and two together that, maybe I should take this to as a product to market. So that's how gratitudemission.org started out, to take my product to market. And that was the most of 2018 that I spent working on that, getting it manufactured. I actually went overseas to do that, getting it up and running. And then late 2018, I had the opportunity to take my product onto the Home Shopping Network on live television, which was so exciting. And it aired multiple times on HSN. And that kind of led into talks with publishers about writing a book and writing my story. And it just kind of went from one thing to another. One thing I talk about in my book, and I talk about over and over again, is that when you embrace the positive and you are open to more of it, it comes. And my life since I was sick is the absolute epitome of that. I have just had blessing after blessing come into my life, so much to the fact that I'm just overflowing now, and I want to give back even more. I want to share with other people. I want them to experience what I've gotten to experience, because it's been just so life transformative. So all of 2019, I spent writing my book. And it was, like you said, it was a very daunting task. I'm not a writer. English was actually my worst subject in school. So I'm not sure how someone convinced me to do this. But it started out as, just putting my own story into words. And then I was encouraged to find other people who had similar experiences and write their stories down. And before I knew it, I had 25,000 words, and I hadn't even brought the research in yet. So at that point, I was led to say, they told me that you already have a book. You just need to kind of refine it and bring some more stuff in. So that kind of, those mental games kind of kept me going.
I love that. What a great story. I think it's so key to be able to, evolve, right? And listen to the intuition, take those risks, take those chances, even though they seem difficult. And I think it's always so important to learn from our challenges and take the blessing. So for you, going through all of that, the illness and then the battle, what would you say is your biggest lesson out of all of that?
The biggest lesson is to focus on the positive no matter what. There's always something you can find that's positive, because the second you let the negative take over, it will envelop everything and it will pull you in the wrong direction so quick. Mm-hmm. And it's a practice, and it sometimes pulls me back in. And I've been doing this for years now, and I have to still be very cognizant and very aware to stay positive and to stay focused on the positive and all that I have in my life.
Yeah, I think it's so important to let go of some of the past stuff, right? Because we can get held on tight, right, in the past, and we want to release that. What's not working for us, right? We want to have more of what is working and what serves us and serves the greater good of humanity. And I think it's so great to pay it forward as you have with the gratitude, with gratitudemission.org, and then coming up with this gratitude tree. So let's talk a little bit more about that. And you said that one of the things that you really wanted, the start was you wanted to inspire your kids and teach them about gratitude. So how are they now using the gratitude tree, and have you seen a shift in their lives since they've incorporated gratitude?
Yes, so we as a family use the gratitude tree regularly, and we add to it. We remove leaves at times, and we add new ones on to kind of seasonally keep it in where things are. So it's a green tree right now, and it will in a few months turn into a fall colored tree. But they absolutely have shifted their mindset. They are much better at handling when bad things happen. And case in point, so when this whole coronavirus thing hit, school shut down suddenly, their social life shut down suddenly. For my twins, they didn't have a birthday. And they just took it in stride. And we focused on all the things that we did have. And we kind of put our minds together. well, how can we solve this problem? You know, you feel a little disconnected from your friends. What else can we do about it? And we would just collectively come together and we would brainstorm on ways to kind of make things better as best we could. And I'm so proud of how they handled that massive adversity come up, because I run into so many adults and talk to so many people that are still struggling with this, and you know, this shift in life and how they just can't handle it and they need things to go back to normal. So I believe that the practice and the rootedness and gratitude really help them through it.
Yeah, and also certainly, you know, witnessing your journey and being a role model for them, you know, that's always there. That's always there, and it's a learning in the background, right? That's accumulated. So I think that's a beautiful thing. So, what are some of the things that your kids, and let's share everyone's age as well, if you don't mind. But what are some of the gratitude moments that they're grateful for?
Yeah, so I have 13-year-old twins and a 10-year-old, and we practice this every night before we go to bed. We just kind of focus on the day. What were we grateful for? What did we really enjoy from that day? And we focus on that right before drifting off to sleep. I believe it sets us up for a great day the next day. And I encourage them when they get up, because we all get up at different times, to kind of bring that feeling back in. Because the most important times to practice gratitude are as you're falling asleep and right when you wake up in the morning. So they really embrace that, and they fall into it naturally, and they do it, and they'll come tell me, you know, things that we have 2 pets. We have a cat and we have a rabbit, and they're kind of our, you know, parts of our family, and they're just so thankful that we have these fur babies that they can care for and they can take care of. And they get along so well together too, which I'm really excited about. They think they see the value, and they're grateful for having siblings, and they, you know, realize that some people don't through this, and they're so thankful to have that camaraderie between siblings. I think that that's really been something that they focused on through this as well.
Yeah, you know, I think that's remarkable, and I love that. And I think it's always good to help other people kind of understand some of the things that you can be grateful for, because when you're in that negative space, it's hard to find things to be grateful for, right? Because you feel like the world is against you. But there's always so much to be grateful for. And so getting into that habit, I think, is so key, because we start to now develop that. It becomes much easier. Again, we're training the mindset, we're working that out. And so it now becomes easier to spot those moments of gratitude and things to be grateful for. So when your kids started this and you said, hey, I've developed this gratitude tree, what was the initial response? Did they find it kind of a challenge to go, what am I grateful for? Why do I have to do this?
Nobody was very excited about it at first.
Yeah.
But one thing you mentioned before that I keep bringing up is you mentioned the mindfulness muscle. Yes. And it's so true. And it's something that, like, it's attuned to going and starting a new workout regimen. You're not going to see anything the first few days to weeks. You've got to start getting that building up. And that's when that muscle starts to build, then you're going to see the results. And we kind of talked about that, you know, this is not something that you're going to experience this big radical, you know, tomorrow's going to look awesome versus today. But slowly and surely, you're going to see the ramifications of doing this. And I point out to them, you know, other friends that they have are struggling through this pandemic. And I'm like, you know, you guys are doing relatively well. What do you think the reason for that is? And then they'll mention some things, and I'll be like, well, what about gratitude? And they're like, oh yeah, that too. I'm thankful for things.
Yeah, that works. Yeah. You know, I love that. It's never too early to start in on, you know, really good habits. And I always say that gratitude should be part of everybody's daily, you know, rituals. I think it's so good for the mind, the soul, and just, you know, for whatever it is that we would like to achieve. And it just changes the quality of our day. And also, it's so impactful to, you know, to the people around us, right? When we can look for the good as opposed to the negative, we can help other people also now start to kind of transform and to look for the good, right? Because life is a cycle, so we're always going to experience the ups and downs and the highs and lows. So if we can remember that, I think it makes it a little bit easier to be thankful in those moments when things are not optimal and they're not easy. And I think it's important to keep that mindset, though, and so that we don't get stuck and trapped in that negative space.
Yes, yes. And that's one of the chapters in my book, is overcoming adversity and the ability to handle it in better ways, because it's coming. we all know, we've probably all been around long enough to realize that it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when the next thing's going to hit. And if we can build up a practice that can get us prepared to shift back into the right mindset as quickly as possible, it's going to just benefit us greatly.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, we're going to take another break right here on the Mindset Mentor and continue with more on how Jennifer was able to overcome a mystery illness and use the power of mindset and gratitude as the foundation to regain her health, and also to start the gratitudemission.org. Such a cool initiative. And we'll talk more about that when we come back after this break. Stay with us. Well, hello and welcome back to the Mindset Mentor. I'm Tania Kolar, and you are listening to Sauga 960 AM. I hope you're having a phenomenal day. Listen, we're going to continue the conversation on, how one woman was able to overcome a mystery illness that she battled with for 7 years. So just imagine that struggle, the fear and the uncertainty of not knowing what was wrong, not knowing why she had symptoms, and, also receiving misdiagnoses. That can be so frustrating. And she was able to take that challenging experience and move beyond it by focusing on the power of her mindset and gratitude to regain her health. So we're going to continue the conversation with Jennifer Garman. She is the author of Flourish, where she recounts her story, which we're going to delve into more into the book details. And also, she is the founder of gratitudemission.org, because Jennifer, you know that gratitude is so key and so important in not only your day, but now clearly as part of your health.
Yes, and I did not realize this until I started practicing it, how powerful it was and how powerful our mindset tools can be.
Mm-hmm. So when you practice gratitude, do you do it throughout the day whenever you have the opportunity, or do you schedule it into your calendar as a fixed time, and doesn't matter what's going on, I am going to make sure that I get this gratitude in? Because I think sometimes we can say, well, I think it's great and I want to do it, but then life happens. You've got 3 kids. A lot of the listeners have kids and they're busy. They're working. They're juggling family life. How did you fit it in?
Yeah, so the 2 most important times to get it in are right before you fall asleep and right when you wake up, because you're in between conscious states right then. And so when you practice it right before you fall asleep, you're carrying that into your dream state and into your subconscious. So it's going to take root and grow even faster. And when you wake up and practice it, you're setting yourself up for a fantastic day by bringing in all that you do have and all that you're grateful for. And I get people are busy. I completely get it. But just taking a minute or 2 as you're drifting off and just listing a few things out you're grateful for those that are more visual or need to do it to get it ingrained, you can keep a little notebook next to your bed and just jot some things down that you're grateful for and focus and dwell on that as you're drifting off to sleep. In the morning, if you don't even have time and you literally need to pop out of bed right when the alarm hits, just put one foot down and say thank, and the other foot down and say you're going to have another day to experience. You can take that with you into brushing your teeth in your morning routine, and just dwell on things that you're grateful for and that you can carry that through the rest of the day with you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because we can overwhelm ourselves with this big task, and if we make it so big, sometimes we don't take that step towards it. But it's important to do the micro things, right, that can then help us have a better day, and to reward yourself, right? It's like, yeah, I was able to get up today and I said thank you. That's great, full stop. If that's all you got that day, honor yourself and that you made that commitment to yourself, right? Because we can be our own worst critics, constantly beating ourselves up, and that just puts us into a negative state. So we really do want to focus on having a good positive state, and gratitude certainly is a huge part of that. So I want to delve into a little bit more of the book and the chapters. How was it for you writing the book? Was it an emotional experience, having to recount some of the issues that you battled with for 7 years and not finding the answers that you were hoping for?
You know what? people are perplexed by this, but I can honestly say I'm grateful for that experience because it led me into what I'm experiencing today. And that was part of what I brought into the book, is that I'm just so grateful for everything that's happened in my life and all the situations because of the outcomes. And I write this in my book that we cannot have the positives without going through the adversities and the negatives. So we would not grow without going through those things. So I look at it as it was a really long, arduous growing period for me. But where, how much I grew and what came from it is so worth the going through it.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to remind people of. It could, regardless of your situation that you're in right now, just think of it as you are growing. You're growing exponentially through this, and you're going to come out in a better place on the other side. So it was not that difficult emotionally writing it. I was more excited, and I was more excited to share everything that I learned and to share all the research that I dug up, and stories of other people that are just incredible. Just some of the stories that I've gathered through my book, and just some of the things people have been through, way, way more traumatic than what I went through.
I think, for me, I've always loved books. And the reason that I love books is because I've learned so much through other people's experience. And I think it's so important to have that human element and that component of a real person sharing an experience. And whether it is a very similar experience or completely different, I think we can always learn and glean something from an experience that someone has gone through, a struggle and a challenge. So again, having that positive mindset for you, I think, is incredible. And to be able to share that, I truly believe that that is a gift. And I also believe that our greatest challenges in life are, without a doubt, our biggest blessings or our biggest rewards or learning experience, whatever you want to call them. And sometimes it takes a while to figure that out. Now, it's not going to feel so good in the moment, right, when you're still working it out. And we want to, sometimes resist that. And that just creates more of a battle and a struggle. And I think it's important to just sometimes relax and just, again, come to the inner space of just knowing, right, being okay with yourself, and that will just guide the next steps. Even though you just kind of feel like, what, am I going to be able to get through this day that's not so wonderful? Just want to pretend it didn't happen, right? I think it's really important to just keep on moving and inspiring others through your journey. So I truly love that you were able to put into words your experience. So what has been some of the feedback for you from your book? Did you get letters from other people going, oh my gosh, I had the same thing, that brain fog, I couldn't remember where I was, what I was doing, or I couldn't, focus on the kids or give them 100% attention? What was that response like for you?
I get these testimonies from people, and it just energizes and drives me. People with fibromyalgia, people with chronic fatigue syndrome, people with chronic pain, and they're telling me that my book has helped them get past or get to a functional place through their mindset, and finding the right starting point and the right ways to grow that. And it's just been so inspirational to me to hear these stories from other people, that it gets me up in the morning. I don't need caffeine. I don't need an alarm clock. I pop up between 5 and 6 every morning, weekends too. And I just notice the grind I'm going and I'm helping people. And it's just so fulfilling.
Yeah, finding that inner passion, I think, is really important to, just being yourself and honoring, the gifts that you have and the talents that you have to share with others. So important. And I love it. Also, you're showing your kids as well that, as you said, you are a role model, but now it's like the next step. And what I loved what you said earlier when you were talking about your kids, the day that you had all this energy, when they were used to seeing you not have energy, they were like, are you sick? Right? It's like, wait, I'm healthy. I'm feeling so good right now. But it's interesting, isn't it? Right? We can fall into a pattern, and then we just get stuck in a pattern, and we don't realize that there's a shift. There's the opposite of where we are, right? So you experience the opposites, and again, life is all about duality. So you can rise above any challenge. And certainly there's so many degrees of what the challenges are for everyone. but there's always something to be learned from that lesson that is really for us, for the greater good of our being, as opposed to feeling like, the world is against you, right? So always important to kind of just keep that as a thought process, I think, to propel us forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the analogies that I love is that we are riding through storm after lull after storm. And it's so true. Like we get through a storm and we think like, okay, now things are calm. Now I can breathe. But we have to realize that the next storm's coming. This is not going to be smooth sailing from here out. One of the quotes that I love is that it's not waiting for the storm to pass. It's learning to dance in the rain. And I love that, because when we embrace the journey through the storm, we pull out the little things that we can be grateful for, and we focus on those, and it gets us through the storm easier. It just makes everything better, and it makes it more, I don't want to say accepting, because first of all, we have to accept that, we're going through this, but we have to realize that it's for a reason, it's for a purpose. It truly is a blessing that we're going through this adversity and this storm. And when we take into account and we shift that lens over into a positive, grateful mindset, it's just, it doesn't seem like such an ominous storm anymore.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. So I want to talk a little bit more about the gratitude mission, how that all started for you, and also how people can get that gratitude tree.
Sure. So like I said, the first thing that I did was I wanted to teach it to my kids. It didn't exist. So then I started to conceptualize this and put it together. And I eventually had this product that I could market, and I started talking to people, and I got connected in with HSN, and we went into talks, and then before I knew it, they were placing a purchase order for it. And I was just like, whoa, what's going on here? Now this is like happening. I had a prototype, but I didn't have full in production, inventory yet. So it was just a crazy, crazy time where I was just kind of learning as I was going. I was making mistakes too, and taking, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it was such a fun and exciting time. And I love that the other people can experience gratitude. And the big reason for the tree is that it's a visual reminder. So it's something that you want to put in a prominent place, and you want to pass by it every day to remind yourself, because you're going to get pulled towards the negative. It's just our tendency to get pulled in that direction. But
we're
this
human,
is going to pull us back into the positive by seeing the things like, you've got your children, your grandchildren, your siblings, your parents, your friends, all these things that you have on the tree that you're like, oh, I do have all this stuff. I can't let myself get pulled into the direction of what I don't have.
Yeah, I think that's so excellent. So is it available online?
It is available on my website, gratitudemission.org. That's the way that you can get it.
Fantastic. And also your book, Flourish.
Yes, my book, Flourish, 7 Ways Gratitude Can Transform Your Life, is on Amazon.
Exciting. All right. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, Jennifer. It has been an absolute pleasure having you here. I'm grateful for the experience and for you to share your story, to help others. I think it's so inspiring to listen to your struggle, and to see how even through the moments that were not wonderful, not optimal, and you weren't feeling, your 100% best, that you still maintained that positivity. You still were hopeful, and you knew that you would, be able to handle this. I think that's something that, we can all tell ourselves. I can handle this, right? Doesn't matter what it is. I can handle this, because you can handle it, and you will handle it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Tania. It's been great to be here, and I'm so honored and blessed to have been able to share with your listeners my journey and my story and the power of gratitude. I hope that they can embrace it and get a transformation like I had.
I love it. Well, you heard it right here on the Mindset Mentor, the transformation through gratitude that you can experience. So check out Jennifer Garman's book, Flourish. You can find that on Amazon. And make sure that in the meantime, you work out your mindset. Remember, your mindset is a muscle. It needs to be worked out. Just think about it. We go to the gym, we work out our muscles, or our biceps, triceps, or abs, and we see the results. So continually working out on your mindset, you will see results. You want to start small and start today. Tune in next Saturday at 11 a.m. for more of the Mindset Mentor here on Sauga 960 a.m.